In this presentation, we're going to look in depth at how Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump use language in response to the Orlando shooting to influence their audience. Through comparing and contrasting, we're going to analyze how Trump and Clinton, respectively, use language elements and stylistic devices to promote their political agenda to voters.
The Orlando shooting was a mass shooting that occurred in 2016 during the presidential election campaign. Over 50 people were killed. This national tragedy prompted responses from both Trump and Clinton. The differing speeches were integral to promoting their policies and beliefs. Both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, in their response to the Orlando shooting, adopt contrasting tones in order to influence the views on their differing policies. Throughout Hillary Clinton's response, she employs an optimistic and hopeful tone combined with urgency in order to create unification in tragedy and ultimately advance her election campaign. She initially sets the tone of her speech as heartbroken for victims and their families, but also frustrated with the shooting itself, woke up to a nightmare that's become mind-numbingly familiar. This allows her to transition into her policies for change through the use of modal language. I have no doubt we can meet this challenge, and inclusive language if we meet it together. This consequently facilitates the tone shift from frustration and disappointment to leadership and determination. She uses modal language prior to every policy announcement, asserting urgency in her audience, thus again shifting her tone from not only commitment, but now imperativeness. However, through her consistent use of inclusive language, we stand together because we are stronger together, we have overcome a lot together, she retains her ultimate message of the necessity for unification and community in times of tragedy. Clinton ends her speech with abundant descriptions of America's ability to come together and support one another. Her tone ends as hopeful and unifying, which allows her to not only create a community in her audience, but also build a support network for her election campaign. In his speech, Donald Trump utilizes a fear-inductive, urgent tone to convince audiences of the exigency of his election as President of the United States. He begins his speech with great sorrow for the deaths of just so many people, with a contrasting tone of shock and horror to Clinton's disappointment and frustration. As he progresses through the speech, he increases his use of exclusive language such as right of every American to live in peace in their own country. He also employs very sharp sentences and harsh language to begin asserting fear in his audience. If we don't get tough, and if we don't get smart and fast, we're not going to have our country anymore. He continues to apply urgent and exclusive vague language, such as these people and what they'll do, allowing him to blur the line between terrorists and Muslims. This consequently instills more fear in his audience as they begin also categorizing Muslim worshippers as evil murderers. Trump occasionally uses informalities such as believe me, I'll tell you what, and folks, which he combines with blatant language to characterize himself as accessible and friendly, therefore providing the underlying tone of complete honesty to his audience. Unlike Clinton, Trump increases his modality significantly as he comes to the end of his speech. He briefly acknowledges the victims and families of the Orlando shooting once more, however, does not reference the importance of community and togetherness in tragedy in his closing statements. Instead, he concludes his speech with short sentences that summarize his 2016 campaign, of course, ending it with, "We will make America great again." Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump use tone throughout their responses as a key device for influencing their audiences. They articulate their tone by utilizing varying language elements and stylistic devices, with inclusive language and modality being consistently prominent.
In the following two excerpts, both Trump and Clinton utilize an extensive amount of inclusive language and modality. Clinton immediately employs the use of inclusive language, through referencing past attacks and the emotions that they have arisen in all of us. This immediately gives the audience something to grasp onto and shows that Clinton empathizes with them as a whole. Similarly, Trump uses inclusive language paired with repetition. This creates a feeling of unification within his audience. Trump illustrates the importance of being one united people, consistently referring back to the audience by using we. As both Clinton and Trump move through their speech, they both start to attach connotations to their inclusive language. Clinton strategically attaches a positive connotation, pairing it with high modality. The use of these two devices together creates a supporting and uplifting tone within the audience. Now we have to steel our resolve to respond. She ignites a fire in the individuals listening and instills hope and action, specifically the action she is going to undertake as president. In contrast, Trump starts to attach a negative connotation to the inclusive language. We're not acting clearly, we're not talking clearly, we've got problems. By addressing the audience and focusing on telling them what we're not doing, he's instilling a feeling of shame. Through the attachment of these inactions, Trump guilts the audience and puts them into a position where whatever he suggests sounds like a solution because it appears better than what was happening before. Within these two excerpts, it is evident that both Trump and Clinton use modality paired with their inclusive language to stress to their audience the urgency of voting for them to therefore take the correct actions in saving the country. Trump uses high modality continually throughout his speech, through attaching inclusive language to the start of his propositions, We need to respond. Trump illustrates urgency, unifying the audience through his call to action. In his second paragraph, Trump utilizes repetition along with modality again. The unification of these two devices expands on the growing sense of urgency that Trump is trying to drill into the audience. Through the repetition of don't, Trump is again instilling that sense of shame and using guilt to get the audience to take action. By saying, if we don't get tough, Trump places himself in a position of power by creating demands as opposed to saying, we are going to get tough, which would have a more positive effect on the audience through the unifying and uplifting tone. Comparatively, Clinton uses less modality than Trump, but when she does utilize it, it is highly modal and synonymous with her overall speech's tone of support and encouragement. In the second paragraph, Clinton states, now we have to steel our resolve to respond. Through the use of high modality, the have to, followed by the hyperbolic use of steel, Clinton is making it obvious to the audience how urgent and important it is for the government and the country to take action. Clinton's use of repetition and modality, I have no doubt we can meet this challenge, again stimulates a sense of urgency and unification through her use of inclusive language. It is evident that both Trump and Clinton use modality and inclusive language as a means of persuasion, both taking different approaches that is best received by their individual audiences.
In their responses to the Orlando shooting of 2016, both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton identify problems and provide their respective solutions. However, each response is structured differently to appeal to their own audiences. Clinton begins her speech by describing the Orlando shooting and providing her condolences to victims and their families, allowing her to present her audience with context. She then transitions into identifying the rooted problems associated with the shooting. She follows a very clear structure of outlining one issue and then providing her solution. This is evident in one of the first issues she raises, ISIS's ideologies having major influence over lone wolves in other countries. She then provides her solution to this, saying, I will put a team together to get on top of this urgent challenge. She consistently employs this technique, addressing several more issues individually and then providing a solution for each. Once she has addressed the major issues, she then enforces their reliability. She uses anecdotes to enhance the effectiveness and necessity of her solutions. As part of her justification, she references Trump's policy statements with negatively connoted language, such as inflammatory anti-Muslim rhetoric, in order to heavily discredit his policies and subsequently Trump himself. She then ends her speech with abundant praise for Americans of all walks of life's ability to unify in times of tragedy, specifically referencing the spirit of 9/12. She emphasizes the importance of respecting and not targeting the Muslim community, therefore structuring her speech so that she finishes with a message of complete solidarity. Similarly to Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump addresses societal and administrative problems. However, his presentation of arguments is far less structured and he does not offer clear solutions for each issue. In immediate contrast with Clinton, Trump begins his speech by discrediting Clinton personally. By saying how poor she'd do as a president before acknowledging the Orlando shooting, he immediately emphasizes the importance of him being elected president over Clinton. He then begins identifying problems with fear-inducing language as well as undermining the Obama administration to evoke urgency in his audience. Unlike Clinton, Trump references and repeats several issues before presenting any solutions. This is evident in the beginning of his speech, where he addresses 3 problems before providing a solution. The first problem is that politically correct responses are hindering our politicians' ability to talk and act clearly. The second problem surrounds the dysfunctional immigration system, where he states, we allowed the shooters, family to come here. And the third issue is Obama's incompetent administration. He eventually follows these statements with his solution being, if I'm elected president, we're going from totally incompetent to just the opposite. As he continues through his speech, Trump repeatedly references different radical Islamic beliefs, the current government's incompetence, and Hillary Clinton's ineligibility as president interchangeably. The repetition allows him to stress the vitality of each issue. Although the structure is significantly less cohesive than Clinton's response, it is synonymous with his own campaign, and it is received as conversable by his intended audience. Dissimilar to Clinton, Trump maintains the structure of speaking until his closing statements. He again acknowledges the tragedy of the shooting prior to his final summary of his arguments. He states each argument with repetitive modal language, we will, ensuring that he instills his policies to his audience. Finally, he finishes with the slogan, we will make America great again, allowing him to unify his speech with his campaign. Both candidates employed different structures in their responses to the shooting, allowing them to remain synonymous with their campaigns whilst projecting their policies to their respective audiences.
As Trump and Clinton's speeches progress, their rhetoric language significantly increases. The audience is pulled in more and more as a result of Clinton and Trump's clear understandings of the importance of rhetorical language. Their use of differing rhetoric devices allows them to inform, persuade, and further motivate their particular audiences in favor of their campaign. Trump immediately uses deligmia, a rhetoric technique used to express hatred of a person through a series of criticisms. She supports so much of what is wrong and what is wrong with this country and what's going wrong with our country and our borders. Trump's poor syntax and unnecessary repetition in this sentence becomes irrelevant, as the deligmia creates an immediate distrust towards Clinton. Trump manipulates his tone to induce a friendly conversing relationship with the audience, where he makes it apparent that Clinton is in the wrong, subsequently making the audience more inclined to believe him. In contrast, Clinton sticks with her overall theme of unification and positivity. She talks about how Americans from all walks of life rally together with a sense of common purpose after 9/11, illustrating to the audience previous times the country is unified to fight a common goal. Through these anecdotes, she further relates to her audience. I remember how it felt on the day after 9/11. This appeal to pathos in her audience is giving them a window to empathize with her and connect over a shared tragedy. In comparison, Trump instead uses his deligmia to evoke emotions from his audience in a pathos appeal. The Obama administration, with the support of Hillary Clinton and others, has also damaged our security. Trump solely focuses on discrediting the other side instead of providing convincing reasons to vote for him. By pairing the deligmia with repetition, she's really been forced, and she has been forced, and we don't have the support. We don't have the support of the law enforcement system. Trump is demonstrating to his audience the almost ineffable incompetence of Clinton and the Democratic Party, and consequently the superiority of his proposed leadership. Clinton continues to push for a harmonious future, using anecdotal evidence to persuade her audience that this is an achievable goal. We had each other's backs, she states. The use of the past tense had implies a huge amount of disappointment towards the current Republican Party, specifically Trump. Clinton furthermore illustrates to her audience the urgency of fixing this division. The anecdotes allow the audience to see the possibility in her propositions. Clinton further instills this unity within the audience. There was a Republican president, a Republican governor, and a Republican mayor. We did not attack each other. We worked with each other to protect our country and to rebuild our city. This unification appeals not only to her followers, but strategically Republicans as well. By knowing her target audience but not being exclusive to it, she's able to increase her popularity on both sides. Trump again continues his abusive rant towards the opposition. She has no clue, in my opinion. She's in total denial, and her continuing reluctance to ever name the enemy broadcasts weakness across the world. True weakness. Trump implies that Republicans and Democrats cannot work together, making the audience further distrust Clinton and the Democratic Party, labeling them as a true weakness. Clinton, towards the end of the paragraph, reinforces her core belief of unity. Democratic and Republican presidents have risen to the occasion in the face of tragedy. Through this anecdote, Clinton again illustrates the benefit of working together and therefore poses the question of why can't we do it now, discrediting any childish criticisms coming from Trump. Clinton then closes with a highly modal statement. That is what we are called to do, my friends, and I am so confident and optimistic that it is exactly what we will do. This perfectly summarizes her intent and purpose to her audience, a final, unifying, and definite line. Whereas Trump uses yet again high modality and repetition. We need a new leader. We need a new leader fast. This reinforces his clear hatred towards the Democrats, and when paired with his previous use of rhetoric deligmia, solidifies in his audience the urgency for change. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump both utilized language elements and stylistic devices in their responses to the Orlando shooting in order to convince audiences of their respective policies. They each employ similar use of high modality and inclusive language to provide a balance of unification and urgency in times of tragedy, as well as employing similar use of rhetoric language. However, both candidates apply contrasting approaches when making use of tone. Clinton's being hopeful and determined, while Trump's is fearful and urgent, as well as the structure of each response. Clinton's being clearer and more cohesive, whereas Trump's is less cohesive but more conversible. Therefore, it is evident that both Trump and Clinton employ strategic language elements and stylistic devices in order to appeal to their specific audiences and subsequently promote their political campaign.